So with a background in strategic ICT and information security, Shiva, who is from Trinidad and Tobago, pioneered digital currency research and retail CBDC implementation in the Caribbean. His work in fintech began with his MSc thesis tracing Bitcoin transaction flows in 2013. He later conducted socioeconomic research into the advent of digital currency in the Caribbean, as published by the United Nations in 2016. In 2016 and 2017, he worked with the International Telecommunications Union to develop capacity building workshops for Caribbean policymakers on the topic of fintech. He currently serves on the Trinidad and Tobago National Risk Assessment, Virtual Asset, and VAPS. And of course, Shiva is the managing director of Pinnacle Consulting Limited, located here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Sure. Thank you, Cameron. And that's very, very interesting what is taking place at present. But it's important to note that AI development started years ago, back in the 1950s. And there's been distinct periods of inactivity and spurts of innovation. And where we are right now is in the hockey stick phase, where there's exponential growth. So something like this taking place is to be expected. And it also brings up a lot of fears that persons have with respect to artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence. So again, previously we've had simple chatbots, we've had Siri, Alexa, interactive ways to execute simple instructions, retrieve simple pieces of information. But now what is all the rage, of course, with AI is the generative aspect, that ability to generate content, text, images, videos, sound. That is the generative AI that is all the rage now. And that's really only started back in 2022 with the release of ChatGPT by OpenAI, as we saw there. Back in 2024, I participated in a conference in Geneva, ITU's AI for Good conference, and I was completely floored by the number of applications there are for AI. And this has been taking place quietly in the background. The thing that we saw, or the thing that was very public, of course, was the generative aspect with OpenAI in ChatGPT in 2022. So beyond what is popular in the news, AI continues to develop and flourish in the background. And there are many use cases for AI. From that particular conference, a couple of my key takeaways would have been things like the medical application, studying things like multimorbidity. Previously, you would only be able to study one aspect of morbidity. So for example, NCD, a non-communicable disease, you would study diabetes. But now you can study patients' data and their records, looking at multimorbidity. So let's say a patient may have a combination of diabetes and heart. And now we can study that combination. So this is just part of how powerful AI is in looking at data and looking at patterns, and us being able to rely on that pattern recognition in things such as healthcare. Another one of the key takeaways from that conference was deepfakes. And deepfakes in particular, it covers the both areas of this session, AI and cybersecurity. There's a constant conflict between the white hats, the good guys, and the black hats, or the hackers, or the malicious intent guys. Malicious intent is the better word to use rather than hackers, because hackers could be good. The white hats have to keep up their detection methods to surmount the new techniques being employed by the black hats. And they are, of course, doing deepfakes, and now we have to implement measures to overcome those latest development of deepfakes. And it's getting pretty fascinating what is possible. We have now something akin to a filter that could be applied live over an image on social media, and you would appear as a different person. So deepfakes in the past were produced before, now it is occurring live. So we really have some fearful areas that are being developed. Because think about it, we've already had implications where, in a particular case in one of these Asian countries, an employee authorized a wire transfer based on a conversation he had, a video conversation he had with someone, one of his higher ups. It turns out that it was a deep fake that he was conversing with. So moving from video to live deepfakes, that is significant. How do we detect that? How do we go up against that? So again, the development looks like the hockey stick. We've been traversing horizontally for years since the 1950s, and now we're on a steady incline. And what we saw with DeepSeek is something that is to be expected. OpenAI and ChatGPT, they were consuming data from copyrighted sources, and now we have AI entrant consuming what they produce, the intelligence that they produce, to produce their own intelligence. So this is all to be expected within that exponential growth phase that we're in. But there are those that fear this growth phase because they fear the unrestricted growth of AI, AGI, which is general intelligence, and super intelligence. And the fear is that in an unrestricted environment, we're going to have research taking us in places that will not benefit humanity in the long run. Unfettered research on areas of research that are not tethered by ethics or proper governance could lead to the development of AI, which would take us to a nefarious or a malicious type activity being performed by these AI as they grow in their position within the world. So a couple positives, things like pattern recognition, of course, that's good. And the negatives, of course, think about the AML CFT that you have to perform, and now that you have to go up against deepfakes. Think about scams, and these scams being hypercharged now by AI, the scripts that they will be able to execute, the video and the voice calls that they will be able to imitate. And these scams are taking place globally and locally here within the Caribbean. I've had experience recently with a financial sextortion scam, which resulted, unfortunately, in a teenager's death. So these scams are real, and they could only become hypercharged with unfettered development of AI. And this really brings us to the point of ethics and proper governance. And this is why it's appropriate to you guys at that corporate governance level. Cam?